Hey, welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host for today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor. What's up, Tim?
What's
Let's
up,
switch
buddy?
these
Yeah,
screens.
we
We're,
were
we're
backwards there.
backwards. Well, I don't
Yeah, I
know what's
can't
going
handle
on
that.
there. That wasn't right. But folks, so we are once again doing the radio show pre-record tonight. So we're going to be live here on all of our platforms right now, but we'll start the radio version of the show in a few minutes. And tonight we're going to talk about. I got the is Biden open borders there in the question. Should we ban non-compete? Then we're going to talk about the gas stove things too, because Tim bought a gas stove today specifically to own the libs. No other
To
reason he
own the
bought it.
libs,
Just that's
fight the power, Kevin. I'm all
that's
about fighting the power.
fighting the
Everybody
power.
knows that.
Just because.
Taking it to the man. But
Yeah.
then the man comes and takes my stove is how this is
Yeah.
going to end, I think.
Yeah, well, eventually, if they're just going to stop selling them at first, and then you just won't be able to get one. And if you keep it in good condition, it's going to be worth a lot of money, Tim.
Well, I can't wait for the black market propane market, bro. Like, I am going to save up propane. It just makes sense. Black market propane, black market stoves. We can have black markets in everything. We'll enforce them with violence. The future has never been brighter. Never. Clowns.
Future is bright in the black market. There you go.
Clowns creating black markets to
Yeah,
make their
we'll
friends
talk about
rich.
that because everyone's talking about the federal news. There's also like state news related to that too. So we'll talk about that as
They should be on sale, stoves soon.
They might, but so we'll get to that stuff. But so in about 30 seconds or so, we'll start the show. We'll do the radio version, and you know how it goes, folks. Like, leave your comments if you want to participate in the show. Always love hearing from you. That makes stuff fun. And we will maybe go a little bit extra. We'll see how things go.
I have some polls that I'm doing on Twitter that I want to share with the people. So I don't think it would make for good radio, but if you guys hang out till after the show, I'll share a couple of the polls I've been running.
Yeah, a couple polls. All right. Well, what's your Twitter handle, Tim, so people know where to find you?
That's a good question, Kevin. I call myself the Freedom Variant. I at Tim for Senate. Tim for Senate.
At Tim for Senate. All right.
Tim for Senate. Yes. We are live now on Twitter. We have viewers there too.
There we go. All right.
Huge. We're going nationwide, brother.
Yeah, right on. All right. So we'll start the broadcast now.
Now, an hour of clarity for exhausted people of our nation mired in toxic partisanship. Left versus right, us versus them. While we pay to keep our politicians fighting, how do we, the people, rise up and solve the great challenges of our time? We do it by embracing freedom and liberty. There may be no such thing as a free lunch, but this hour is as close as it gets. Welcome to A Free Solution.
All right. Welcome to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today, joined by Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor.
I am glad to be here, Kevin.
All right. So welcome everyone listening today. Of course, we have our live stream on the Free Solution Facebook page, Free Solution YouTube channel, Free Solution group, the Kevin Wilson page, the Tim O'Connor page, Twitter account, all the stuff. We're live. Folks, again, if you're listening to the show on WYSL, this is a pre-record show on WYSL for Thursday evenings. If you want to participate, the live shows, we're recording those Tuesday evenings. But for those of you here with us live, appreciate y'all here. And always appreciate the interaction. So we got a few things to talk about today. We have the discussion around immigration. We have a discussion around the gas stove stuff and a possible ban on gas stoves, and the non-compete agreement stuff as well. So we'll get to all three of those.
Biden is doing a great job of making literally everyone angry at him. Like, I'm absolutely proud of him. Like, in a way, absolutely proud of him is not the right thing to say, but his handling of the immigration situation is absolutely amazing. He's managed to make conservatives incredibly angry And Kevin, he's even managed to make he's pwned the libs on some of this stuff. He's they feel like he's breaking promises.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that. Like, so on the immigration stuff, we'll talk about that first. And I put the title of the show is Biden Open Borders now, right? Which it's so funny because like to me, I'm here like as like a pro immigration guy and being like, man, I can't stand anyone. Like this is all terrible. Like I wish I wish the Biden administration was more pro immigration, just made the process simpler. Conservatives are saying he's open borders, like he's not, but he did do something that is like it's a bit mixed, right?
Mhm.
So he had that the Title 42 thing that happened under Trump. Basically, if you're seeking asylum in the United States, uh, they want you to wait in a safe third country, right? So that's why like everyone was sitting in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
But
What
the
if
but
I
the was
what if I called that the Trump plan, Kevin? How would you feel about that?
I mean
No,
that'd be accurate. That's kind of what it was.
just
Um,
reincarnate the Trump plan.
Yeah, and so this is what started under Trump, and the Biden administration like sort of thought about getting rid of it, and then it got challenged in court, and then now they have this like workaround with it, where so with certain countries with like Cuba, Venezuela, and a few other countries, they can still seek asylum. But they're supposed to do so ideally from their own country. The problem with doing that in a place like Venezuela is it's not really safe to do so, right? Like you're in a communist government who doesn't like the United States. They don't want people leaving, and you're supposed to do that and still stay in a third, uh, a third place, another country like Mexico. But Mexico is limiting the number of people who can stay there. There's supposed to be a few other countries that are partnering with this in South and Central America, and listen, the whole thing is supposed to be you're not supposed to come here first, right? Again, but the problem is some people are on their way, and sometimes it's not safe. And if you're like actually fleeing for your life, what else? What other recourse do you have? And if you go to Mexico and you don't have the resources there to take care of yourself, what are you gonna do? Do you just take the risk and just walk over and hope you don't get caught in the U.S. or something else?
Yeah.
Because that's part of what created the big crisis on the borders. That this bunch of people are just like, screw it, I'm gonna risk it because like it's better than the situation that I'm in.
There is, guys, there is a humanitarian crisis. It's in Venezuela, right? There's a humanitarian crisis in Nicaragua. Some of it's like the war on drugs has caused a lot of hardship south of our Mexican border. People have a legitimate legal right to claim or seek asylum in the United States. Now, we are seeing I'm going to put it out there, Kevin. We're seeing this massive explosion of interactions at the border. People getting returned to where they're coming from, getting caught crossing the border illegally, trying to enter unannounced, trying to enter and then claim asylum. There is a certain pragmatic sense that I get that saying, "Hey, you've got to find a way to legitimately seek asylum before you head in our direction." Now, let's talk about
But
the
well, the goofy
irrationality of
part is
it.
like, but before this, which makes things slightly better for some people who are in a situation where you can do that, is like there really wasn't any other way to seek asylum other than coming into the United States and asking for asylum. So that incentivizes people to just cross illegally because if they ask forgiveness instead of permission, they're better off,
Well,
right?
now all they need is like an iPhone 10 or better. I mean, the app, they can download the app from the App Store and the piece of cake, bro. That's all. They
Yeah.
did a little self-service out in the middle of a war-torn or impoverished socialist dictatorship. That's all they need, Kevin. I don't understand why you have a problem with that.
Get a cell phone, get some crypto.
A couple
You can make stuff
bitcoins,
work.
they're on
Yeah,
their
right.
way. They're on their way.
But no, it's I know it like countries though like Haiti, right? Like Haiti's a mess right now. It's not a good place. You don't want to hang out there if you don't have to.
No,
Um,
thanks to Bill Clinton saving it. Look, these things are horrible. These countries are a mess. We should have it. I agree that there should be a path that's simple, straightforward, and direct for people to come here and go to work. I think uh, when we get into this conversation, I want to reiterate because I know people are scared, angry, and concerned about a border swell, right? And you and I are going to probably, this is where you and I seem to have a slight disagreement. I'm sympathetic to that belief that we already are $31 trillion in debt, that a burden of asylum seeking it's legitimately a financial burden on the United States,
No.
and that
Well,
we need to fix individual liberties in the United States first. That's where I come at it from.
no. So, well, two things in this one. Keep in mind that, and I think we'll agree on this part, that the chaos around the border is government created, right? Like they could make
Absolutely.
things simpler, they could make a clear process. Like it's just not. It's complicated. It's expensive. It takes years if you do it the right way, and there's a lot of bad incentives for uh people to cross like without permission and to rely on smugglers, and like there's all sorts of bad
Sure.
incentives for like chaos to happen and for bad people to emerge in like a black market for human travel, when the
Absolutely.
easiest thing that people could do is just be able to travel over, find a way to be able to stay here legally, to expand the sponsorship program in the United States. There are ways that we could do this that would be less chaotic, that would be better.
They're
um
political football, and that's
yeah.
always, ever since I was a little kid, disgusted me to my core, okay? That they use human beings as a political football. The Republican team, the red team, the blue team, they use it as a political football. They've never fixed this thing. This is an argument going back
Yeah.
to forever. I think the 50s, 60s, something like that is when we decided to close down the border.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan is a guy that believes in freedom. He believes in liberty. He granted citizenship to 16 million illegal immigrants back in the 80s, right?
Ronald Reagan is
Ronald
like open
Reagan.
borders compared to like Joe Biden. Like he was
Oh,
way,
sure.
way, way more pro immigration than like any Democrat, Republican that we've had for like the last 20 years.
We get this competing virtue of like, hey, we're going to cut back on what you can do, including even which we're going to talk about later, this ban on gas stoves, right? We're going to cut back on your rights, your liberties, your property rights. We're going to take the mineral rights underneath your property. We're going to raise your taxes. We're going to make laws that you hate, and yet we're still going to force you to accept a burden of a
No, no.
financial
So, all
burden of
right.
people
No,
coming over the
no, no,
border.
no. See, like I really don't like
You
that
don't like
for
me
two
saying
reasons.
it
No.
from a
Well,
perception.
I think it's incorrect and it dehumanizes people is why I don't like it. And again,
Okay.
and I say this in part because like they're people. They're not a burden. They're people who come here and they buy stuff. They have jobs. They have families. They participate in our community. You know, and I say this. Someone's like I'm on a volleyball team with several people who are immigrants of like different statuses, people who became citizens, people who are still on visas, you know, like there's like I see these as people who are my friends, my coworkers, my neighbors, people who are like working hard to be a part of the American dream in many ways. And like they're not a burden. In fact, having more people in a community can be helpful, right? Like there's like it is a good thing for like a community to grow, to have more people in it,
Do
more
you
hands contributing to work, more hands contributing to like development and research and innovation. This is what like a greater population can do, and this is what like communities like Rochester frankly need, because New York State drives so many people out. Like we need more people here who can
wouldn't they
make
be
things
crazy
better.
to choose New York right now? Like, seriously, they would be
It's
kinda
better than the
crazy.
alternative. Like, it's better than Venezuela. You
Is
know,
it?
we got that going for us here in New
We
York. Like,
got we
well,
so we
it's
got a
better
big
than
win there.
Venezuela. It's better than Haiti.
Alright, so let me just say this, I accept you taking exception with me using the term burden, but there are financial costs associated with the asylum program, are there not? Do we not provide housing? Do we not provide a certain level of sustenance for a
I
while
mean,
for
the
asylum seekers?
government
To separate
takes
them,
from us,
we
but
there's
yeah.
issues where things have to get separated. There's people that came here on visas who one day wake up and now they're illegal aliens or legal immigrants or whatever. It's
Yeah.
nonsense, it's wrong. And I think a lot of other people, and you can go ahead and tell me I'm wrong, are under the impression that the asylum program costs a lot of money,
It's relative to everything else the US does. No, not really. And
which is fair.
yeah,
Like
and
that's a fair critique. I get it.
and it doesn't like have to. Again, like could expand our sponsorship programs here in the United States. And there is some of that. And I say that as someone like who also like worked with refugees to do things like start their own childcare programs. Like this is something I did like when I first moved to Rochester is I ended up getting a job as administrative assistant for a program that did that with refugees, mostly from Nepal. Right.
Right.
And so, yeah, some of that was government funded, but the whole goal of that was so that they could start their businesses and care for children specifically in that community and be self-sufficient, and a lot of them were pretty quickly.
Here,
That's
you want to feel the comment or two out so that you and I stop
yeah,
arguing? Just
yeah,
kidding.
no, which did well, yeah.
Here's
There's
one.
immigration is okay as long as they pay taxes like we do instead of us paying for them to be here. Here's the thing, Joseph, is immigrants for the most part on net pay more taxes in than they get back out, because a
Right,
lot
but
of times. Well,
there's a
let me
sound.
finish my point, and I'll
Yeah,
let you
go ahead.
talk.
I'm sorry.
A lot of
Yep.
times what ends up happening, particularly with, like, undocumented or illegal immigrants, is, like, they'll work and they'll pay into the system because 'cause they'll operate under, like, fake Social Security numbers and stuff, and then they can't actually get the benefits of the system that they paid into. Uh, for the most part, immigrants are on net contributors. It's, like, not they're individuals who end up, collecting more, but it's kinda difficult to benefit from the welfare state under many immigration statuses. So and again, there's a lot of Americans who aren't taxpayers either. So,
There's 43% according to Mitt Romney, right? Like, and I'm not sure he's wrong. So immigrants, there is. Let's talk about this distinct perception that you're challenging, that the asylum program costs a lot of money. Also actually want to reiterate a point that you made, and then talk about this perception. All right, but they come here, they work, they borrow a social security number. They cannot file for tax returns, they cannot file for social security. They know that they will get caught. Like they are, in fact, contributing taxes when they are working. You Nobody gets to pay anybody cash anymore. It's a very rare form of exchange. I wish that it happened more often. All right, guys. Like that's a reality, but people don't have cash. We are moving away from cash, which also minimizes our power. But what Kevin said is actually very real. I've talked to real people out there doing real jobs who have been working for 20 years and never got a tax return. Guys, like they're here. They're doing jobs, man. Like that's a reality. And Kevin's right too. Like they borrow social security numbers, they go to work. A lot of immigration, young men who are immigrants don't get hooked up with services. It's a product of our system. I'm concerned with it more so than Kevin. I understand where Kevin's coming from, and I
yeah.
understand where you're coming from. Like I'm trying to get us. They're human beings, man. That's a
Yeah.
reality.
No,
That's
they're
something we got
people,
to deal with.
and like just talking about this thing about takes 5 years of asylum to make them citizens so they can work and pay taxes, not keep taking our tax dollars. Again, they don't have to be citizens to pay taxes. Like and in the U.S. you can a lot of asylum seekers, refugees can like work a little bit faster. There's still like a process, and I think that's a problem, right? You should be able to get here, and like if you're seeking asylum, you should be able to get a job right away if you want to. What goes wrong in Europe a lot actually is that they don't let them work, that they have to be like on the system for like a long time because they're so weird about like they're taking our jobs type of mentality that they end up being leeches.
Working,
It makes them do that.
right.
And just so you got a longer comment here too. It says, when it comes to libertarians, sometimes freedom can hurt the goals that they want to accomplish. For example, for southern border, illegal aliens keep coming in. They don't have points of entry. But then if you ask a libertarian about it, they say that they shouldn't be a border wall. Thing about that is there's this border wall, then there's no border enforcement. How do you stop the problem? Uh, just like I think we've addressed a lot of these points, but in terms of the border wall thing, like it's not that useful. It's like saying gun control stops guns, right? Like just the border wall, like you can find pictures of people just like climbing over it or around it or through it. Like there's border fencing and border walls like on our border already. It doesn't stop people. And the way most like illegal immigrants end up in this country is they fly in on a legal travel visa and then they overstay their visa. Like that's what a lot of it is.
And can I
So
talk about that? Because that one is where I'm distinctly on the side of the person that came here and got a visa and has contributed to our society already. And then all of a sudden, one day wakes up, their visa's expired. They built a life here for their 5-year visa or their 2-year visa or their 7-year visa. Okay. Like and, and there's a distinct industry that has built up around that exact problem, and it continues to incentivize not a fix to the visa problem, but an ongoing legal situation where people have to funnel money to lawyers to
Yeah.
try to get to stay here and take care of their family. That kind of stuff is nonsense, and we've got to fix it.
Yeah.
Got to
And
fix it. Got to
no,
fix the visa
100%.
program's nonsense.
Yeah, and people also think like, oh, this is like just a Central American thing. Like it's not. It's like Canadians to Europeans. Like it's everyone from around the world. Like it's a nightmare for people to be able to get here and stay here like legally. Even if they have a job, an apartment, like they have an established life, it
And to be
still could be a
married, they have
nightmare.
kids, and then all of a sudden their visa's expired, and somebody decides to crack down on that person for whatever reason because he didn't pay his lawyer enough money to keep him going back to court as literally the reason. Okay. Like I knew a guy came here on a student visa, started working in a diner. He's paying his taxes, he's paying his loans, he's still trying to take some classes, but school wasn't for him. He's an entrepreneur, right? So he's doing a great job in our society. He's not taking a job anybody wants. $15,000 he gives a lawyer. The lawyer doesn't even show up for the trial date, right? Then the lawyer's like, well, your $15,000 didn't cover all the work I had to do. You got to give me another 10 and I'll show up next time.
Yeah,
This
what a
kid,
shakedown.
a 27-year-old kid on the hook for $27,000 and still is unsure of his status to stay in this country. Now he managed to stay and then he got himself in trouble when he was like, but whatever. I blame COVID for that.
Yeah. I know some ridiculous stuff. And then John says sponsorships are again being proposed. I don't see a problem with that. Yeah, again, that's something like if the Biden administration ends up like doing some of that, I think they are planning on doing some of that. The expansion of
It's
sponsorship
included
programs.
in his when I was reading his breakdown of what
Yeah,
he was offering and he's going to expand sponsorship. You've got to find a sponsor too. In the where you are, you have to find a sponsor with an
right.
iPhone or cellular service. You have to
Yeah,
he's not
right.
pro immigration. He's just lip servicing
There's
everything.
there's a little bit of virtue signaling going on, and
Sure.
if he just virtue signals well enough, the Democrats would go, "Oh, see, he's better than Trump." No,
Yeah.
like barely. Come on.
And before we change subject, immigration is a
Well,
tool.
we gotta head the break. We
Okay.
were supposed to take 2 breaks last time and did not, so
Oh,
that's
okay.
my bad. But we're gonna head the break. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution on WYSL and streaming online. We're gonna be back in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. Oh, yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry. I was supposed to put in 2 breaks last time, folks, and I only put in 1. We're having a good conversation, me, Tim, and Andrew.
Yeah.
So,
Joe, thanks for your comments. Because I do think that libertarians got to do a better job of communicating that I I understand what Joe's saying. I understand that the perception is this and that the media and the teams are manipulating us, man. They do it all the time. And I get it. I want that to stop. And I get the issue of our property rights are eroding every day through government malfeasance and incompetence. And so there's stories like Armenia basically was like overrun with immigrants where they were just moving in, taking over houses. People got lost all their property. Then all of a sudden they had to be like flee a war torn country when they had established lives. People are afraid of that. And our government doesn't do a great job of making us feel comfortable there. Does that make
I
sense?
don't know, but
Okay, well, okay,
I
so
believe that's a fear people have. I don't know that
okay,
that's
and that it's happened in history and that our property rights are eroding. Do you agree with that premise?
I don't think that it's fair to scapegoat immigrants for that.
I didn't say I was scapegoating immigrants. I'm
Then what did they
connecting
have
a
to do with
dot
each other?
that people are afraid that their property rights are eroding, that their rights to
What does
own
it have to do
property
with
are eroding,
immigrants?
that property crimes are no longer crimes. People should be concerned with that. They
Yeah,
think
sure. What does that have to do with immigrants?
that when our government isn't protecting our rights, how can we be rest assured that they're going to protect our rights with more people coming to the country when there is a limited amount of resources. I'm not sure why we're not connecting on this,
No,
communicating
was
on
it
this,
like yeah, government's not protecting our property rights? Sure, no, I'm with you. Like,
and
why
that
are we
would
blaming the
contribute
immigrants for
to
that?
a fear of losing your property that would be enhanced by people being brought here by the government.
How are immigrants going to take our property?
Along with the government is going to take our property. That
And
immigration,
give it to immigrants?
unchecked immigration, is going to contribute to that. I
No,
don't
so
see
you're
why
not
that's.
building the connection. You're just like assuming that there's a logic between those two statements and not building a case.
It's a fear-based statement, and it's a recognition. I don't know that has to be logic. I think that when we
Well,
communicate with people, we have to understand what their fears are, and I think that that's important.
well, and I think it's important that it is a fear-based statement, not one based in logic, and like that needs to be refuted if there isn't a connection between an immigrant wanting to come
I
here
don't.
and
Well,
like
at
have
what
a better life, and the government like not protecting our property rights. Those are separate things.
I
Like,
don't see how
I
they're
don't.
separate. If we don't have a government that we can trust,
You haven't proven to me that they're connected,
I
other
don't. If
than
we
like they
don't have a
could be.
government that we can trust to protect our rights and things that we've invested in, how can we expect them to protect us if people want to steal that from us? I don't
Who's gonna?
understand.
Why are immigrants gonna steal it from us?
Whomever, either the government or other people, Kevin. I'm not
So
sure.
what's it
Like,
have to do with immigrants? That's what
it has
I
to do
don't.
with everybody. I don't understand why you're not getting
I
a
don't
leap of
understand.
faith
Like
of what I'm
we're
saying.
not on in sync of this because like you're just like, yep, government's gonna take our property, so we need to understand why people are afraid of immigrants. Like those are like just like a
I'm
non
saying it's
sequitur to
connected,
me.
that the fear of the government is connected to the problems with immigration, like the fear of immigration and the misinterpretation of immigration. I'm not sure why you're having the reaction we're getting here. Not sure. I don't understand it at all.
They're not related to me, right? Like so that's my
That's
perception,
fine. That's a fair statement. I get that.
is that
That's good
government taking away our
communication.
property rights has nothing to do with like immigrants coming here and wanting to like work and raise a family. Like those are two totally separate issues, like and not at all connected to me. And if you're trying to connect government taking our property
I'm
rights to
not trying to
immigrants
connect it. I'm
somehow,
trying to express a
then
way of communicating with people that have a problem with immigration that may or may not be rational.
we can agree on the may not be rational part.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Sorry, dude, I don't see it.
I
Like,
get that you don't see it. You've made that abundantly clear.
like, I don't know. Like so I'm not gonna connect the dots. But anyway, so folks, in a minute we're gonna move on to the next segment. We're gonna go back to the radio show portion of this, so you guys get some bonus content of me and Tim, like
Tim and Kevin arguing.
yeah, repeating the same things at each other, like and be like, "Ooh, don't you understand it?"
What part don't you understand?
Yeah. Yeah, Brian Lewis. Personally, I understand we don't trust the government that can't get a letter from point A to point B without losing 11 billion a year.
Yeah, that's a pretty fair
Fair. I
point.
mean, yeah, you probably shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't. To
Yeah.
be clear, I absolutely don't.
Yeah. All right. So at 29, we'll come back in, and then we will be on until 59. 30-minute segment. All right, and 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson for today. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. Got Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor, with us.
I am here, Kevin.
Yep. And so we're talking about we're talking about the Biden immigration stuff, and the possible expansion of sponsorships and the stuff with the where like Haitians and Cubans and Venezuelans, all them are going to have to like wait from now on, and where. So we talked about all that stuff. We're going to move on to a different topic, and I know like a few other folks are in there, Steve Becker. I acknowledge your comment. So Tim and I don't end up in a spiral of arguing about immigration for another 10 minutes.
I'm ready, Kevin. I'm going to keep going.
There's a perception that illegal immigrants go to the head of the line. I'll just acknowledge that I agree that is a perception. Without
there you go.
Acknowledging
That's all I was
that
asking for.
the validity of that, I agree that that's a perception.
10-4. See that?
Listen, Tim, if someone's wrong on the internet, I gotta tell them. Like I can't.
I wasn't wrong, Kevin.
No, you ever see that? No, their perception is wrong. I gotta correct it. It's you ever see that meme of the guy from Parks and Rec who's like, oh, well, no, I don't need that. Actually, no, it's going to bother me if I don't,
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
I've lived that meme.
Ben Wyatt one. Yeah. But anyway, we're going to talk about stuff where I think we're a little bit more on the same page on, which is, we're going to talk about the gas stove thing first.
Oh my God. That? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Talk about why you bought a gas stove to own the libs.
Okay. So I bought a gas stove because I need a gas stove. And I know like burning fossil fuels is on the chopping block in New York State, but I need a stove, right? So I buy a stove yesterday, and then all over social media and in the news, Biden is talking about banning my stove just like that. It's like, they're like, you asked me if I bought a stove to own the libs. I bought a stove because I needed a stove. If I get to own some libs in the process, fine. But what's really going to happen is the libs are going to come, take my stove, and be like, here, cook with this heater, like this electric heater or something. It's bad, Kevin.
Yeah, you can have a little like plug in like what do you call
hot plate.
Hot plate. There you go.
You don't want you to burn your house down. You can have a hot plate.
Yeah. No, so just to give more context, if you're not familiar with what happened here, basically there's like a Biden administration official, the commissioner of the Federal Consumer Product Safety Commission, who they had like a report that was talking about like maybe that's something they could consider banning in the future, right? So it wasn't like they're going to go and imminently ban this. It was like one of those things that kind of got out and floated, but now it's probably not going to go anywhere, hopefully, because people are mad about it, but we'll see.
People are outraged. We're on a collision course with ending fossil fuel consumption in New York State. We've set out goals and guidelines by a time frame which it's going to be done.
I was going to mention that, like in Governor Hochul's State of the State, one of the bullet points was to prohibit the sale of any new fossil fuel heating equipment by 2035. And there's a bunch of stuff related to this, which included in that could eventually be like the gas stove type of thing too. It's someone that but my city council person had at one point in time also floated banning the sale of gas stoves within Rochester, which is kind of extra useless because like I could go down to Henrietta and buy one. Like it doesn't, and like they would also ban like new like gas hookups in the city as well, which wouldn't necessarily affect me. I already have a gas hookup, and there's many new properties being built, but eventually like that could lead to like we're just gonna stop servicing these lines, and if you have a gas stove, like you're out of luck. Or a gas furnace, which I also have a gas furnace because I got the gas furnace, I got the gas stove, and I got the gas dryer because like natural gas was cheap. Yeah, natural gas was super cheap when I got it. Like less so now. Like
La-dee-da. Holy cow. It's just amazing. Like I don't see why we need the government to force us to make any of these decisions. I don't know why the government gets involved. We already have a ban on like in our area or in New York State, as I understand it, of selling outdoor wood burning boilers. And there is just places where they're perfect and there are people who they're perfect for. And this doesn't make any sense. Like they're not necessarily for everybody. What's that?
There's a ban on wood boilers?
There's a ban on selling wood boilers in New York State.
Oh,
as far as I understand it,
I had no idea.
Every distributor has pulled out of New York State and did so about 6 years ago was the last time, as far as I know, that there was a wood boiler distributor in New York State. You can still get them. You can still get parts for the one you have, right? But like towns and cities and villages can regulate those things if they want to, even though zoning is a problem. But look, there's just places where they work and people who they work for. And wood is, even though it's an inefficient deliverer of heat, it is an efficient way to tend to your land. And so there's a trade-off there that
Mhm.
is a net positive for people. Some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, well, like I'm kind of with you. Like if that makes sense for you, right? Like because you might not have gas line service in your house. Like my parents have had like oil base heat for a while, which they thought was kind of annoying at times and expensive at other times. And some people I could get why they might not want to do that either.
Yeah, well,
Um,
it's smelly, that's for
yeah.
sure.
So maybe you don't want to do that, and maybe you have a bunch of lumber and free time and the energy to go and gather it and use that in a wood burning furnace. Yeah, good for you. Good, go for it.
Why
I know.
wouldn't that be okay? Why wouldn't we consider put all options on the table and let people live their best lives? Because we're run by a virtuous nanny state government that just thrives
Yeah.
on signaling their virtue. I mean, I'm just putting it out there. It's up to you.
That could be part of it. Now, so I'll give their like some of their reasons. Like the obvious one is like, well, we need to move away from fossil fuels, right? Like, so okay, it's a climate change thing. We need to move that, even though like the contribution of natural gas is like low relative to a bunch of other stuff, right? But yeah, okay, so that's part of it. The other part is like there's also like a kind of a equity based argument too, like, oh well, we have to stop indoor air pollution. Indoor air pollution affects like certain communities more than others, and I'm like, that's a more of a stretch to me. Especially since like if you have a gas stove specifically, like you can pretty easily like mitigate like the indoor air pollution aspect of it by just running a fan. That's all you got to do.
Uh, Again, right? We get into this situation of I have cooked with electric, I've cooked with gas. I like to cook. I like to cook with gas. I feel like I have a much better touch, a much better feel, and my food comes out much, much better
Right.
than
I
it does.
agree. I've had an electric stove for a while, man. I
Oh,
I
it's a
love
nightmare.
having a gas stove. Like it just did being able to adjust the temperature. So that's why like when the band idea came up in like Rochester, I'm like, no way.
No way.
No way. It's
I
ridiculous. I
have
want
my tanks are right outside my house, Kevin. Like I even if there is a loss of electric, will still be able to heat my home by making my stove light. And
yeah.
and so there's an issue of safety here out in the wilderness. I don't even have to rely on a natural gas hookup from the street. I have
Right.
my tanks right outside my house. I like it like that. I don't know why everybody's got to have a problem with that.
That's right. Well, it's because you hate the
Centralizing
earth.
yeah,
Yeah, because
centralizing a power source and using it to rely on heat, which is what they're trying to force us to do with electric, seems to
yeah.
me to be like a kind of a jeopardy
Yeah.
situation.
So I'll say this, like the I've been kinda leaning towards getting an induction cooktop. Like, my stove, it's old, it's like 15 years old now, as I understand, and it's starting to leak a little bit of gas, so, okay, it's probably time to replace that bad boy. And I was like, "Ah, maybe I'll get an induction cooktop." The Buffalo snowstorm made me, like, rethink that slightly, just because, like, there's so many people who lost power, and then, with proper ventilation, you can use the gas stove still. Even most of the lines still stayed connected. You could use the gas stove to warm your house. You heat big pots of water, and
Yeah.
that'll like hold some of the heat in your house. Now I have somehow in the 8 years I've lived in this house never lost power,
Wow.
but
That's
yeah,
amazing.
it's weird. I don't know what it is about like the lines going specifically to my house. Like all my neighbors have been out of power, and like I'm like I'm good.
The
Come on in
lines
for
are
tea, man.
funny. We've had issues here where, like, across the street, it's connected to an entirely different grid, and they go
Yeah.
down, and we still have power. It's very strange sometimes the way they've run these electric transmission lines.
Yeah. So whatever it is listen, it's my power somehow like never like really gone out. I think maybe like once it did, like some car hit like a pole right outside my house type of thing, but that was it. But yeah, that's my only hesitation on like maybe I should switch it or not switch to induction because the induction is getting a bit better at like the heat control type of stuff. Like it's gotten good. It heats up quick. You get the pretty instant control.
That
Um,
Lagasse guy was selling an induction cooktop, wasn't he? Like, around
yeah,
the time he Mero Lagasse, the guy that goes, "Bam."
that's part of it.
So, and he sold a bunch of those air fryers. Like I bought one of his air fryers. So like I think he sold an induction cooktop, which actually made me skeptical about induction cooktops, but
Yeah.
apparently maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know.
I don't know. I follow this appliance guy on TikTok, and he's selling me on it. Showed me some of the tricks, how like it doesn't heat up, and like it can boil a thing of water in like 15 seconds. Like yeah. I mean, you got to buy fancy cookware for it though. It's got to be like magnetic,
Okay. I'm
but
willing to try it.
yeah. Let's say well, they got cool stuff out there now. Because if I do that, I go fancy with the stove. Like I'd get the induction cooktop, and then like the 2-port ovens. One that has like the convection oven, which is basically that's how air fryers work. It's just a
Right.
convection oven, right?
My new
Yeah, I
gas
knew you
oven
knew
has
that. I was playing
convection.
that for anyone else who might not know that.
Yeah,
But
no, I like
it's
convection.
but yeah, so you get the convection ovens, you get 2 things, and because I bake a lot of bread and stuff, so it'd be kind of nice to be able to do that.
Do you
Um,
capture your own yeast? Have you ever tried that?
so I have a sourdough that I've had going since like the beginning of the pandemic. Actually, I
Oh, wow.
totally
Yeah,
did.
that's when I started it too. Yeah.
I totally did the sourdough bread trend, and I've kept it going. Like I finished off. I made some baguettes on Sunday, and still got the same sourdough culture going since then.
All right, that's amazing. I'm impressed with that because that is something obviously at the beginning of the pandemic, I'm like, well, I got a bag of flour. I better learn how to cook some bread. I checked the level of my propane tanks. All right, I can do this. So I captured a wild yeast. I made some bread. A lot of times I had a connection though. This was fun. One of the things I did was I was able to go to a barn and get some. I don't want to call it milk because it wasn't, and it was a gift, so it wasn't like I bought it, right? But I
He's
was
like, all right, cops don't come. I did
yeah,
nothing
right? No,
illegal.
please don't. But I was able to make mozzarella cheese. I was able to make ricotta
Oh,
cheese. I was
nice.
able to make butter. Like I
I
had a
mean, you're
blast
allowed to
there
do
for
that
about
stuff
a
for
week.
personal consumption. It's just you're not supposed to sell stuff.
Right. It was not. There was no money exchange. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. So yeah, I mean that's pretty cool to do that. Never tried that. I've never made my own cheese. Just done the bread thing.
It was so easy. Mozzarella
Yeah,
cheese is really, really, really easy to make. It's
yeah,
you got to get Renee to make it really well, I think. And I just used vinegar, and it came out pretty good. You can
yeah.
flavor it up. You could get kind of creative with it. It was fun.
No, neat. I'll have to try that sometime. So I didn't do the thing where I captured my own yeast. I just got culture from a friend. But
That's as good, really. Like some of these cultures people have for sourdough breads they go back for centuries.
yeah. So, and she got it from another friend. I've given it to like 5 people in my neighborhood now through the Buy Nothing group. Like that's been a cool thing.
Oh, the Buy Nothing group? That's cool. We'll have to talk about that on a show one of these days.
Oh yeah. No, we're gonna have there's a local RIT professor who has a great article about that, and maybe we'll have to invite her on. She's been on the show a couple times before.
Cool.
But so I know we only got like a little bit left, but we'll get to this other comment from well, I'll get to Steve's comment first. It says, Kevin, you're on a main street. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I don't lose powers on a main street in Rochester. But Joseph, like just to sum up his comment quick, basically says that they're putting electric car chargers everywhere, making fewer spaces for gas cars. Yeah, no, it's kind of a thing. Like you're going to see more and more of that, right? Like it's just more like chargers that are reserved specifically for electric vehicles. In New York State, I think is it 2035 when they're going to ban or no, it might be sooner than that. They're gonna ban the sale of electric vehicles soon,
Fueled
or
fuel
gas
burner. Yeah.
vehicles.
I think it's 2035.
Yeah. So all that stuff, yeah, is 2035. Just confirmed that. So yeah, all that stuff is happening. So yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting to see if like we have the infrastructure for that type of stuff too. I don't know.
I was mentioning to you before the show when we were
Uh,
talking about this electrical situation.
Here,
Um,
so we have to go to a break
oh,
quick, and maybe we can continue that. But we have to head to a break for the radio show. We'll be back here on A Free Solution in just a few minutes. Talk to you soon. All right. Yeah. Sorry. I know it's weird. We gotta like interrupt for the breaks.
Okay. Yeah.
But like, yeah, Bob's like, yeah, you gotta have two of them in there. But that
Okay.
you folks listening online, you get this extra stuff, and I'm gonna mention this during the radio show, like the list of podcast. We put it out as a podcast too. I'm gonna edit it right after the show, so no more like putting up shows like a week after they came out.
All right.
Um, so it's gonna be up there. So if you miss any part of this, it's
Definitely highlight our fight though. That was great. That was
yeah,
epic.
that's
People are gonna
that's
love
gonna be in there. But so you're gonna say something because we continue this conversation and jump back to the show part. We got 15 minutes left of radio show.
that. Okay. Should I
But
save it for the show part? Because I think it's an interesting take on this that I haven't heard anybody else talk about. So
all right. So we'll do that. We'll go back at 45:30. Then we'll have until an hour and 30 seconds past the hour to talk the radio show. Then we keep talking if we feel like it, or go to bed. I don't know, whichever we want to do. All right, so back in 10. Welcome back to A Free Solution. I'm Kevin Wilson, your host today. Thanks again for joining us here on A Free Solution. We got Tim, the Freedom Variant O'Connor here as
we're
well.
still here, Kevin. We're having a
And
blast.
thanks everyone listening here on WYSL. Last segment here, but of course we do this stream online. And if you're not listening to that occasionally too, it's a good opportunity to jump in, leave your comments, participate in the show, see what we talk about during breaks, that type of stuff. And sometimes we go a little bit longer. So make sure you're either listening on to the online stream if you want to participate, or subscribing to our podcast. Look for A Free Solution anywhere you find podcasts. We're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on all the or whatever it is, Apple Music now. All those places you can find us. So Tim, you were going to say something before the break, and I cut you off.
As probably everybody knows, I have a particular interest in electricity. Being as I am involved in the solar panel installation industry right now. And so one of the things that I got thinking about today is that everything single pole electric is very wasteful. Single phase electric is very wasteful, and everybody's house is wired for single phase electric. Now, a simple change in that could change the dynamic of electric uses if everybody was able to tap into three phase electric. And I think that by and large, it might be a very simple change that would actually expand our existing electric that's available, make it cheaper, and make all of our electronic devices run more efficiently. There's a problem with it, though, of course, because a lot of your stuff that you have right now in your house is designed to run off a single phase electric. If we were to change that, that would change the dynamic of everybody's worried about the electric grid not being able to power what we want to do. If we were to change that dynamic there, we actually would be a lot closer to meeting our goals. Though everybody would have to take a big hit on all their electronic equipment.
Right.
Not even all of it. A lot of it runs on close enough voltage that it may not last as long, but it would still work.
What was it explained it like, because I only sort of know the difference, and I'm betting a lot of people listening don't know the difference between single phase power and three phase power, and what happened to two phase power too. Like
there's no
I know.
Okay, so we're gonna get to where I'm not
Quickly.
necessarily an expert, right? But I know that when we wire electric motors, big, huge electric motors run off of three phase electric. Your lighting and shopping centers and stuff like that run off of three phase electric, because it's incredibly much more efficient. Basically, you have three poles of electricity coming in, and every basically generator has the ability to generate three phase power. So when you're driving down the road and you look at the top of the poles and you see three lines, you're basically in an industrial area. You're going to be seeing these drop off to major buildings, because that, some of you guys know, like the principle of a dryer, an electric dryer runs off of a double pole electric. And what happens is that it exchanges electric back and forth across the pole to generate heat, because that's an efficient way to do it. When you add a third leg to that, the efficiency actually goes up, I think, in a multiple of 2 or 3, something like that. So if you had a three phase dryer, it would use something like a quarter of the electric that a single phase dryer uses. So if we think about it, we put it into perspective, like all of our major electrical applications in industry are run off of three-phase motors. If we were to expand the availability of three-phase electric, that might solve a lot of these problems. So that's my best explanation. I am not an electrical engineer, but I'm going to do some more research on this.
Oh, sure. All right. Yeah. Well, there it is. So maybe we'll talk about it on another show. But yeah, that's that's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought about that. Because yeah, I've only heard about people using it for like industrial use, and people like try to hook up three-phase power to their house or set up a way to convert that if they're running like a workshop out of their house type of
Right.
thing.
They add a generator, right? And they bring in
Yeah.
a delta leg that or a Y leg that changes all the time, and they have to have a voltage regulator on it. But
Mhm.
then they do get three-phase power, and they can run some like 50 horsepower electric motors can like honestly, the power of an electric motor is instantaneous. That's what people say about the Tesla vehicles is that the acceleration is like neck popping, you know?
Yeah.
I love that.
220, 225, whatever it takes.
Yeah, 220, 221, whatever it takes when that's what's his name there? Batman, Michael Keaton, and building an addition on his house.
Right. Yeah. All right. So anyway,
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. No, but yeah, we're gonna we'll switch to the non-compete stuff, I suppose, right?
Can I just say that Kevin McCarthy has struck a blow for freedom, Kevin?
That has he?
Well,
Kevin has done something good. And good job,
he
Kevin.
he is promising to defund the IRS.
Uh,
Not only that, and some of my conservative friends are going to love this, guys. He is kicking Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff and Ilhan Omar off of all of their committee positions. That's what he says.
meh. Yeah, I mean, like, all right, like the committee thing, like, whatever. Like, I don't know. He's also putting a bunch of clowns on too, so you know.
Oh, absolutely, bro.
Different, like different circus, but it's still clowns.
The blue boot or the red boot, brother. It doesn't matter which color. Still walking on your face.
Yeah, in terms of the IRS thing, like, yeah, you know, like I agree with the bill to do that, but like,
Sure,
it's not going to go anywhere. So it's like it's hard for me to get excited about it because I'm like, it's not getting through the Senate. It's not getting through Biden's office. Like, okay, like, yeah, cool, good job, guys.
It's good advertising for Team Red, Kevin.
You know, they could do this stuff when they're actually in power. They had majorities when Trump was in office, and they expanded government.
You would ask, why didn't they? That's what you would ask. One could ask that.
Why didn't they do that stuff? Yeah, that's it's always my question. Like they talk a pretty good game when they can't actually like carry through the things that they're virtue signaling.
Even Trump kind of, I mean, it was such a big letdown when he promised to never sign another like budget or continuing resolution, and then he just started signing them away. And when he would let the government shut down for like 12 minutes, I was like, all right, we're on to something here. And God, snowball walked on two legs right there, bro.
Yeah. So like since we're at that, we'll talk about like some of the House stuff, right? Like yeah, McCarthy won. The Freedom Caucus held out for a little while. They got some good concessions. Unfortunately, Justin Amash is not the Speaker of the House.
I thought that was going to happen too.
Yeah, pretty bummed by that. But oh well, maybe next time. And I mean, there's some good stuff. The guy there, like supposedly there's going to be a longer waiting period between ringing the bills, which is good. They're gonna, in theory, try not to do the big Cromnibus bill. They're gonna actually try to vote on like actual spending bills that are a little bit more individualized, which if they do carry through with that, great. Or they'll just keep doing continuing resolutions forever. Who knows?
I'll give them some credit. I think there was some good effort there, and the arguments that they had while unseemly, right? That what they were asking for, I felt was reasonable. I just
Yeah.
don't
Well, yeah, a
quite
few of the
buy
like
that.
a few of the things are reasonable. Like a few of the things I agree a little bit less with, but those things I'm glad for, and it also wasn't entirely clear in the beginning that that's what they're asking for. It like in the beginning, it kind of seemed like they were just doing it because like screw the establishment, which like I get that energy. I
Yeah,
understand it. But well, what are we doing this for? Like, is there any higher purpose to this? And then maybe Justin Amash had an impact on that with his old Freedom Caucus buddies, and they actually got some accomplishments because of his prodding, or maybe they were doing that anyway and just no one talked about it. But I don't know. Could be good if it goes that way, though.
it could be good if it works,
Yeah,
as
if it
they say.
works.
So you definitely want to talk about non-competes. I want to talk about non-competes. I apologize for throwing in the whole sidetracking us there.
Yeah,
Um,
no worries.
I just want to put it out there. I've never been asked to sign a compete or non-compete clause ever in my
Not knowing the
entire
trade
employment
secrets.
history.
Not
No, I developed my own trade secrets when I was an independent contractor.
there you go.
The company that I'm working for now has not asked me to sign a non-compete. Though, if they were to ask me to sign a non-compete, I would say, "What are we going to do about my severance package or my subsequent compensation for not competing with you?"
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
that's the question to ask, right? Like,
right.
is it worth it? Now, if the Biden administration has their way, the FTC has their way, you will not be able to do that. You will not be able to seek extra compensation for non-compete agreements because they're thinking about banning it.
Just ban
Uh,
it.
just yeah, blanket ban. Can't do non-competes anymore.
Black
Uh,
market non-competes. I
and
can
and
see that.
so like the argument for that is basically that non-competes make it difficult, especially for workers who have like less power in negotiations, to be able to go out and find other work, right? Like that prevents them from being able to find other jobs in similar industries or going out and like finding clients if it's client-based work that non-competes interfere with that, which I sort of get, right? Like because I have been asked to sign non-competes before, and I resisted them because I was like, nope, these are dumb. I'm not going to do that. You know, I've worked in marketing agencies, and I've had contracts where I've worked with agencies too as like an independent like digital marketing consultant, and some of them have been ridiculous. Some of them have been like, yeah, you can't you can't go and get any business from anyone that we've even solicited ever, even if you don't know about it. Like that's how it's written. Like not just like clients you've worked on or like clients we currently have. It's you can't go after any client we've even talked to ever, even if you don't know about it, or we can like sue you for it. And I'm like, nope. Nope,
Nope,
not gonna
not
sign that.
signing
That's a
that.
bad deal. You are not paying me anywhere near enough for that.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, but like as an employee, you can and should do that. But like there's some ridiculous ones out there, right? Like what some like fast food restaurants will try to do that where like you have to vow to protect the trade secrets and not work for any competing fast food company for a period of years. That stuff's ridiculous. And by the way, in New York State, usually not enforceable anyway. Like it's only like pretty limited situations where it could actually be enforced. Like the situations I'm in where like I'm working directly with a client. If I go immediately afterwards and pitch that client business and get it and take away business from the agency I had contracted with, they
So,
actually have some damages there, right? Like that's
yeah,
what a non-compete is supposed to be for. Or you're working with a
sure.
vendor to replicate a process, or you take like actual proprietary information. That's what it's supposed to be for. It does get abused in some of these like you know wage worker situations. I think one of the companies I worked for was like, oh, you got to. I think it was Annie Ann's. Yeah, I had to protect the secrets of like making the pretzels and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
It's an intimidation thing, right? If you
yeah,
think
right.
about somebody getting a job at McDonald's and being reasonably happy there, and then McDonald's saying, "If you go to work for Burger King, we're gonna sue you." It's like, Okay,
Yeah, it's trying to intimidate you from like getting like a better, possibly higher paying job and staying
sure.
there, right?
It's
And that,
it's a wage control factor in that case, right? For low
yeah,
wage, lower middle class, lower wage people. Now, in an area like what you're saying, like lawyers and salespeople, like signing a non-compete on some level that you're compensated for. And guys, I think sometimes a non-compete could be worth a lot of money, right?
yeah, right. Like again, like if I know I can't go after somebody, and this will happen with like mergers and stuff too. Like when companies get bought, like okay, I just sold a website building company. I can't go out and like start a new company with the same business and go after my old clients. Like it doesn't, you can't do that,
Right,
understandably so, right? Like, but
right.
you're getting compensated for, that agreement, and that's fair. And so what I think is probably going to happen is it's going to end up getting preserved in some way for like higher end employees in the same way that, yeah, we got like 40 seconds left. So in the same way that we have like the exempt versus non-exempt salary rules, there's there's probably going to end up being some exemption, but hopefully, like I tend to lean towards we should just kind of butt the government out. But I mean that's my usual default
Yeah.
position. But I know we're out of time though. Thanks again, folks, listening on WYSL. We're going to continue the show for a few minutes here on the live broadcast and the podcast, and make sure you subscribe to A Free Solution. But if you listen on WYSL, have a wonderful night. Thanks so much for joining us here on A Free Solution.
Thank you.
All right, I have a gap there. All
Beautiful.
right, yeah, but I know I was trying
I
to
mean,
pack our points there on the non-compete stuff, but
sorry about that. I think it's actually a good subject that we could have, because I found an article, of course, that takes it into the woke area, but in a way that actually might be worth discussing, right? Um, Women and workers of color are less likely to negotiate than their white counterparts, which may result in more restrictive agreements for them. I think that speaks to what I was talking about it being this intimidation factor, this piece of paper that's threatening legal consequences on people that
oh,
cannot afford
it's
to defend themselves.
it's
Honestly, I'm
it's
amazed that they're out there. I didn't even realize that they were out there.
oh, 100%. It's totally a thing. Like I like one of I had a situation where like I felt like that's what the point of that non-compete agreement was. It was to intimidate the people coming into the company and to like, if you're not going to work for us, like you're not going to work at all. So you either better stay here or get out of the industry, right? And
Yeah,
and
that's what
and
it
like
is.
and I was at a point in my career where I could just, all right, yeah, we're off the radio. I could just be like, fuck you, like I'm not signing that. Like, and if you're mad about it, pound sand. Like, you want me to work here? All right, get rid of that. Get rid of that shit.
That's
I'm,
yeah.
and yeah, they were in a position where they kind of had to do it. But there's a lot of other people who like, oh, I need this job, and like there are other candidates who can go and do this thing. You
It's
feel like you're replaceable, even if you're not. You feel like they're just gonna pick someone else, and I need to have this job right now, so I'm just gonna sign away my rights.
yeah.
But I said, listen, I've been in a few situations where I didn't have to do that, and it's nice, but I know that that's kind of a privileged position because, like, I had money, even if I knew they couldn't say no to me, but even if I did, I know I would have been all right for a little bit.
Right. That's
And
always a good place to be, and it's hard. A lot of people haven't mastered the secret to getting there, and it's hard to get there, right? Like it's hard when you're raising a family to figure out a way to save money, to figure out how to save money, to figure out how to protect yourself and your future.
yeah.
People have a tough time getting there, and they do get desperate for jobs. And so, like when I was reading about this, I'm like, this is bull baloney, man. This is bad stuff. I didn't even like. I had a boss that used to threaten to sue other restaurant owners for solicitation of his employees.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's usually part of it too. It's
and it's like I don't know. Good luck with that. You know what I mean? Like it was. I don't know.
Yeah, but no, like, because that's part of it too, is, like, a lot of times you can't solicit our employees, and that so, like, the argument for making these illegal, at least in some circumstances, is that, like, you no longer have the ability to like be able to move around as easily, right? Like that
Sure.
talent can't go to the places where it's most needed, most wanted, so in places where non-competes are essentially illegal already or non-enforceable, California and New York, there's a lot more like fluid job markets in certain areas where like poaching's a thing, right? Like tech in California.
Right.
Despite all of the nonsense that goes on in California, that's part of the reason why tech culture thrives there is because non-competes are essentially non-enforceable, so they can just they poach each other all the time. So talent
Right.
ends up like getting redirected constantly.
I did, like I said, I found this NELP.org publication. Um, Almost 30% of non-competes cover workers who make below $13 an hour. Like
Yeah,
I would
totally
I
stupid.
would want that to be. I'm not a. I try not to advocate for big government things, but I would want contracts like that to be well communicated illegal if you're making that kind of money. Like I'm a
Yeah.
fry cook at McDonald's. For 13 bucks an hour, I could be a fry cook at Burger King for 15 bucks an hour. See you later, sucker. That's
Yeah.
it. You see what I mean? Like that to me is like,
What's that? Let's say, and if you don't know that, like people just throw stuff in their contract, and that's why you have the whole like thing in the contract, like if any part, the severance part, like in a
yeah,
lot of contracts, employment agreements, like if any part of this is unenforceable, it doesn't invalidate the whole contract, blah blah blah. Like it's because a lot of them know that like the non-compete stuff isn't really enforceable, but they want to do it to intimidate you. So like if you're in that situation or you have like kids and like or relatives who are in that situation, friends, like tell them that, especially in New York, like it doesn't matter. Like don't let that intimidate you from getting another job in the same industry. Like it does
and
not
making
matter.
more money, period.
And yeah, exactly. Like just go get that better job for more money. And but like to that kind of woke article's point, like that is the thing. Like a lot of people like, and sometimes it's people who are poor, sometimes people call it's not necessarily exclusive to those groups. I know it's a kind of a left-wing tendency to like make that exclusive because it happens to everyone who's like unsure of themselves and confident in themselves or just in like a precarious financial situation and they don't want to risk it, right? Like they don't know, like maybe it's not enforceable, but maybe it is, so they don't risk it.
Well, that's the thing that when I was reading that, it's like clearly a lever of intimidation because if I go get a job at if I'm a fry cook at McDonald's and I go get a job as a fry cook at Buffalo Wild Wings, are they going to actually enforce that non-compete clause against me? Like, what are they
No.
going to do?
Yeah, not for you. Like again, they might enforce it for an executive vice president or something. I
Right.
can enforce it for you, a fry cook. Like, it doesn't matter. It's not worth the money to them. It's
And certainly there are certain levels of employment where trade secrets are important. And there are certain industrial jobs where if you leave, you could take some information that could benefit your competitor. But
yeah,
you should be ready to negotiate that non-compete thing. And you should sit down and say, you're only going to pay me $14 an hour. That guy hires periodically and he pays $19 an hour. I'm not signing this non-compete unless you give me 18.50 an hour or 19.25 an hour or something like that. I think there could be rules about how it's communicated that
yeah.
might benefit people.
Yeah, no, like, I listen this way. I generally don't want the government involved in this. I don't want a blanket ban, but
Right.
like I sort of get the argument for some of those workers. But also, like again, a blanket ban is bad because as you said, there are some industries, and like I said, I'm in one of them too, where like non competes like sort of make sense, and it becomes like riskier to work with like freelancers if they don't sign like certain non compete stuff, right?
They're going to
Because
steal all your clients. They really
yeah,
are. I mean, that's the
you
thing.
could, you're right, like, that's like
Yeah.
freelancers like myself, I could just go and do that, and then, that's less incentive for you to go and work with those contractors, then you have to hire new employees or decide not to hire new employees or not take the business at all. So, like, there's a way in which that protection of some intellectual property or, like, client integrity, things like that, where non-competes do make some sense and do help, like, keep businesses more secure. But those cases are probably more limited than what is used today.
Correct. And look, oops, sorry. I didn't mean to put that right up there. I did promise everybody that I was going to share one of my most active polls on Twitter today. And I've been doing polls, guys, pretty regularly. So if you get a chance, follow me, check out the polls. I generally try to keep them funny. Like this one is totally not serious, but also like in light of the January 6th committee not even like withdrawing their subpoena and not really having any meaningful impact, was that just like a trick pony show? Like, what was that? So I asked the question. Was the January 6th committee a huge pile of steaming dog poop? And I have some great selections. I have yes, also yes, no, and Rob Reiner is a clown because he keeps popping up in my feed with like crazy outlandish comments about how Trump's going to be in jail tomorrow, and everybody's just like, "Oh my God, this guy's giving me a headache." So, anyways, as you can see, overwhelmingly, Rob Reiner is close to winning, but it's yes, also yes. And I think that if Rob Reiner as a clown wasn't one of the choices, I think most of those people would have also voted yes. So we're at running and democracy for the win, 90 on the order of 97.9% to 2.1%. The January 6th committee was a huge pile of steaming dog poop. What do you think, Kevin? Democracy for the win, or I'm traveling in an echo chamber?
With the January 6th stuff, I it's mostly what these committees do, right? Which is to partisans get on, they dig up a bunch of dirt. That's it. Like there's some real stuff there. There's like some ways in which Trump was a huge jerk about the whole
I
thing.
think you and I were pretty clear. Like he was very flawed. He was very problematic, and he became almost just like everything he was fighting against. He spent a lot of money. He did a good job trying to pull us out of communicating about how we overpay for foreign interactions. Like that to me was one of his strongest things. He did some decent things with criminal justice reform, but he didn't stand on his promise to lower spending. That never happened.
No.
Like he went crazy with it. Yeah. And populist authoritarianism for the win. That's what we're living in right now.
Yeah, that's what he was. And like I said, with he was a bit delusional about some of the election stuff. Sorry if
I love
anyone
that
agreed
stuff.
with him. Not
stuff,
sorry,
man.
but no, so like again, he did some like dumb, borderline illegal things in the run up to January 6th. He was irresponsible. But the January 6th commission, I think again, it ends up being kind of partisan dog and pony show, and it never ended up being a serious thing. And that's whose fault that is.
Who is Ray Epps? Kevin, I watched one thing before we go. I want to tell everybody. Yeah. I listened to that podcast, Behind the Bastards, that you offered up on my page about the CIA.
And isn't that wild?
We all kind of know these things, but to hear them like laid out in a timeline and to hear how it all came together, guys, I mean, you should listen to Kevin and I, but like you should check out the Behind the Bastards podcast and check out the stuff about the CIA. Oh my God. And look, there, like some of it is common knowledge, but to hear it put into a time frame and hear it put into like this led to this led to that.
Yeah, from Project Bluebird all the way up through like MK Ultra and burning all the evidence.
Midnight Climax.
Midnight Climax. What a name.
Climax. They weren't even pretending to lie anymore. Just like when we see some of the things going on in our current deal, they're not even pretending to hide it. They're just
and I'll say this about like MK Ultra specifically and like the details of that, which is like you know how I am with conspiracy stuff. Like I mostly like hate most of it. I mostly think it's ridiculous. The stuff around MK Ultra sounds so ridiculous that is tough it would have been tough for me to believe if I didn't know, like if there wasn't like so much evidence that
can I say that stronger? It would have been impossible for you to believe if it wasn't spelled out, and it was hard for me to believe. And I love my conspiracies. I'm just
it's too wild.
It's like you gotta be kidding.
I joked about it on your page. Like there's one point in time where like it's like a guy who's worked for the CIA, but he's a DEA agent and like a drug enforcement guy, and he's like giving LSD to Johns while like running a prostitution ring and watching how people react on drugs from a toilet. In this prostitute, like it's an absolutely wild story, and they're supposedly trying to make mind control drugs while doing this. That was the purpose of this. Except for it wasn't scientific at all. He wasn't keeping like any notes on it. Like he was just watching them from a toilet, and that sounds like a joke. It's not. Like that's really part of it.
It
what he wanted to
happened.
sit on. He was just sitting there eating and like watching
They
people
the
do the things
CIA
that they do with prostitutes while
the
giving them drugs.
the CIA had to send out a memo. Please don't drink the punch at the Christmas party because they were going around secretly drugging each other for fun to see. And purportedly, there was some consent. Like people were like, "Yes, you can secretly drug me to see how LSD
Yeah.
is going to affect me."
And that's
I mean,
listen,
holy
and that's like the funny stuff.
crap!
There's a bunch of like absolutely horrifying stuff in there too, like just bodies and bodies and like ruining people's lives. Like there's just dark stuff that's part of this program.
There is the depatternization of
Oh my
human
god, that
beings.
woman that they talked about, and
Yeah, the CIA did it, man, and the black ops sites that I think still exist that they haven't closed
that's
down,
a thing,
and
yeah.
what they've done to people there, and what they do in the name of not science, Kevin, like, it's terrifying, man.
Right, yeah, in order to develop mind control drugs, and yeah, so what they did to but
They
people
put
around the
great
world, the like disposable, what they call them, like prisoners and like American citizens on American soil, like
Yeah,
totally nuts.
yeah.
No, look that up if anyone's listening and wants to go down that. It's a long series. It's a 4-part series, but like it's good. He also
It's
has some good
wicked.
shows like the check out like the Stalin episode too. It's hilarious. This dude's like a left winger who like sort of hates libertarians, but like his comedy and his history is pretty on point.
Okay, I'll do it.
So
Look, I got one more thing for us. I hit a meme that's kind of popping off. My kid fact checked this for me, okay? The, the U.S. Army wants to create biodegradable bullets that plant flowers where they fall. This is, in fact, mostly true, Kevin. I don't
mostly
know,
true.
like
The
it's mostly true. Like
the
it's
flower
weird.
thing gets me, like, I sorta get the biodegradable bullets, like, okay,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
putting a bunch of lead out there, maybe we don't wanna do that, right?
That's
Like, we
kind of
know
where
that's
we got
bad.
to. She was like,
Uh,
"Well, it would be great for hunting." Like, and I'm like,
yeah,
like it does make sense and it does have certain applications, but there's something about this, the virtue signal about a green environment when you're going around blowing people up and breaking stuff. Like
yeah,
it's just it's
so
strange times we live in, man.
I'm like,
And they're gonna take
I
my
guess
guess
that's
though.
something we should do, just yeah, you're right, it's like just a strange thing to go together.
It
Uh,
it Raytheon's tweets, guys, you gotta check them out. They're the greenest bomb maker in the world, man. It's
yeah.
just amazing.
That's wild. So I'll get the one comment because I know a couple people have asked me about it. And I think I might have said this before, but people were asking, Steve Becker on Facebook asked, what story about picking up the 8 o'clock hour on Thursday on the radio? So yeah, for those you haven't heard, like I'm no longer on the 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. hour on WYSL. That spot was given to another dude, the guy who had the show before me. Larry Sharp still has his 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. hour on Tuesday, so he still has a Sharp Way. So make sure you check that out. He still does an awesome show during that time slot. They want to find a way to keep me on the station somehow, though. But something. The guy who had the show before me is just he's willing to pay more money for that spot. Like that's kind of what it was. It was a business decision type of thing. So it wasn't like the WYSL like really canceled me or didn't like me or anything. It was a money thing. And so that's why I'm on Thursdays. They want to find another spot for me. So Simple Tech Innovations is sponsoring that time spot for WYSL. And we're looking for other sponsors too, so we can make sure we stay in that spot and maybe expand again one day. But so hit me up if you have a business, particularly one in the Rochester area that wants to advertise. Let me know. That's how we pay for these spots. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But so
That's the
that's why we're
unfortunate reality
Thursdays
of
at
what
8.
we're doing here, right?
With
It takes money to make the world go round.
That's what it is, right? Like, and yes, unfortunately, I can't do the live shows at that time. The producer's not in to do that, so I will miss the folks who called in. Always made stuff interesting, but that's how it
Keith,
is.
I hope Keith
Hey,
finds us on Facebook, and
I know, right? There's-
he was really interesting.
But he would keep my show. Yeah, he would keep my show lively. Just
He certainly was not afraid to disagree with anyone.
yep. Just yeah, call in
I
once a week. shot at me.
Yeah. I have a couple events coming up too. I believe on Thursday at some point, I don't have a time set, but I believe Diane Sayer and I are going to do a live broadcast on Facebook and Twitter and the social medias. And then on January 23rd at 9 p.m., I am going to be on a panel with Larry Sharp. So we're going to have a good conversation. I hope it
What's
gets
the
into
panel
the
about?
nitty gritty of libertarian politics. Actually, I don't hope that, but I have a feeling that that's where we're heading. Like we're going to talk about our successes and our failures, and hopefully work on charting a course for the future. But it's Larry's show; he's going to lead it. We're going to go down whatever road he wants. You guys know I'll have stuff to say because I always do. So
Yeah.
that's what's going on. January 23rd, guys, 9:00. Me, Larry, probably 50 other people, and I'll get to say one thing, but whatever. He's getting pretty popular, man. He's doing a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, he has a bunch of awesome stuff. That's why I'm glad WYSL's keeping him on the radio show too, so a different audience gets to hear what Larry has to say.
Yeah, Larry's great. He's really good.
All right. I think we're gonna call it a night though, folks.
should.
Thanks again for listening. Appreciate y'all being here. Have a wonderful evening.
Take care.